Hi, it's Steve with Coin Stuff I Like, bringing you another video. This one, part three of my Octagon series. And these are some new acquisitions that I've made since the last video. Uh, and if you watch the other ones, and I'll put the links to part one and part two down in the description of this video. If you watch the other ones, you know that Octagons is a particularly fun part of my collecting, and it probably started with my collection of Dan Carr, Moonlight Mint, Clark Gruber Octagon series, which is beautiful, and I've put some of them in the prior videos. Um, but that is sort of a gateway drug, and that led me to looking into other octagons, and in particular the slug facsimiles, and I'll get into that in just a second. And it's a wonderful area of collecting. They're typically not super expensive, although the more rare ones in high grades, yeah, you can get into hundreds of dollars. But they are a little bit harder than U.S. coins, in the sense that you have to look in the right places for them, and you have to do some research and reading about them to learn more about each one of them. It's not as readily as opening a red book and there's all that information, or going to PCGS, Coin Facts, etc., etc. So it's a little bit more challenging, but it is oh man, it's a cool area of collecting. So this time with my new acquisitions, I'm going to share with you a few slug facsimiles, and then a few other octagons from numismatic societies, etc. But first, let me talk about where these so-called slugs started from. Well, it started from this. These were gold ingots, is what they call them, that were produced at the United States Assay Office in 1851 and 1852 in San Francisco. Because of the California Gold Rush, and because there are numerous minting companies that were producing gold ingots, etc., of varying fineness. And because there was a push from the Californians to have a mint in California because of the gold rush, the Congress agreed to open a United States Assay Office, which was essentially the former operations of the Moffett and Company, one of those various minting gold ingots. So they opened the United States Assay Office. Augustus Humbert was the first assayer at the U.S. Assay Office, and they started producing gold ingots. They became known as slugs in practical parlance because they're big and heavy, and rather than ingots. But ingots was the correct term that the U.S. Assay Office used. And what they did is the designer Charles C. Wright designed these. They created the dies, and Augustus Humbert brought them to California to produce these first gold ingots in 1851. And the is very characteristic. These were about 2.5 ounces of gold, and they're pretty large, as you can see here. They had this characteristic eagle. The banner had liberty on the banner, the shield. It had olive branches and arrows in the talons of the eagle, and it was perched on a rock. The rock is said to represent the U.S. Constitution. So that's the imagery there and the symbolism. And above, you had the fineness. So in this case, and when they started in 1851, it was 880,000, thousands being abbreviated. So that's essentially 88% fine, or 0.88 fine. Later in 1852, it became 887, or 88.7, or 0.887 pure gold. And this was sort of a source of dispute because at the U.S. Mint back in Philadelphia, the standard was 0.90. And so there was some disputes about the fineness, but at least it was standardized. And once these came out, then most of the other companies sort of their ingots, their coins, so to speak, became less commonly used because the variance in the fineness of those other companies. So this stabilized that, and it was used for commerce, particularly in making larger deals because of these being larger coins. So also at the bottom you see $50.00. They left a space in case there was cents, but none of these have anything here. So $50.00. Later, this became $50, DOLLS. So that changed. And you'll see the early designs that had this engine turning, is what they called it, design, which is a very fine, very, very beautiful design on the reverse. It was said to be employed because it'd be harder to counterfeit and reproduce this. So the die was used because of its unique design. And in later cases, they stamped or counterstamped 50 in the reverse, as you could see in the center there. So these are produced only in 1851 and 1852. They're called the gold slug from the assay or assay office gold slugs. And they had some variances in terms of the stated fineness, the denomination at the bottom, and whether it had 50 counterstamped on the reverse or not. So this particular coin gave rise to the so-called slug facsimiles, imitations or copies of this design, which came out predominantly in the 1900s in sort of a commemorative or recognition, usually by private minting organizations. So it gave rise to a whole area of collecting, which is the slug facsimiles. All right. So this is what gave rise to it. I'll never own one of these. I've seen 3 of them in coin dealers' cases, and I've actually held one in a slab up close for examination. So I've come that close to them, but unless I'm going to spend 6 figures and put aside the other coins that are higher priority, like my 1873 CC Seated Liberty, which is sort of one of my white whales, and the Eisenhower 1971 proof with the Type 1 reverse. Those coins also going for mid to high five figures and even into six figures for the 1873 CC. So those take priority. This one will never happen unless I win a lottery with lots of money. But I love the imagery. I love the history being back in the California gold rush, and one other thing I failed to say about this. On the edge of these was Augustus Humbert, U.S. Assayer, California Gold, 1851. So that was on the edge, and then you could see the obverse and reverse designs from Charles C. Wright. So let's get into some of the coins or the octagons that I have acquired recently, and in particular, we'll start with the so-called slug facsimiles. First, though, I mentioned earlier, it's hard to get information on all of these readily, and Tom Jankowski produced this reference guide to so-called slugs and facsimile, which has them all, and that was produced in 2008. That's a great reference guide if you could find it. It's hard to find, but if it's in that book, then NGC will slab it and or will attribute it and grade it. All right, so it has to be in this book for NGC to slab and grade one of these so-called slugs and facsimiles. Another book I want to mention is this one here is Hibbler and Kaplan, so-called dollars. So-called dollars are usually metals and related private currency that was typically associated with an exposition or a centennial, etc. Though some kind of major event, it probably is in Hibbler and Kaplan's book. And if it's in that book, then both PCGS and NGC will attribute and slab these so-called dollars. So a couple of several other sources of information. The so-called dollar website, which there's the web address, so-called-dollar-altogether.com. And then they also have a pretty good section on the slugs as well, some examples of the slugs. Jeff Shevlin, who's associated with the so-called dollar website, he's the so-called dollar guy, with Bill Hyder, produced this book, So-Called Dollars, Volume 1, which is all the United States Exposition metals. Lastly, I want to point you in the direction of this particular web address. I put it in the description of this video. This is one of the best collections and documentation of these so-called slug facsimiles. So if you have a chance, have a look through this collector's holdings and descriptions and images. Fantastic. All right, so let's get on with it. The first one is, this one's fairly recent. Has an interesting story. A lot of my octagons I've purchased through Holabird Americana auction house in Reno, and so it's nearby in northern Nevada. And I've managed to win a few lots that have octagons, so-called dollars, etc. And there's a recent one that had this Dan Carr uh, piece in a annex holder, and I lost the lot. I got an important phone call during the live auction, and was not able to keep on top of the progressions in the bidding, and so I missed the hammer. And but shortly after that, a another Dan Carr collector contacted me and said, "Hey, one just came up on eBay." So I grabbed that instantly because I've been looking for this one for years, 4 years. And that's one of the things about octagons and some of these Dan Carr pieces is that because the mintage is so low, you have to sort of wait around till someone frees them up from their collection. So this one here is in an annex holder. It was made by Dan Carr at the Moonlight Mint, and it was made for the so-called Dollar Fellowship, third annual gathering down in San Diego in 2016. So this one here it's a slug facsimile, and a lot of slug facsimiles, at least the earlier ones, had this writing around the perimeter of the coin, imitation of famous California $50 gold slug used by the pioneers. That's common to a lot of the really early slug facsimiles. It has 1850 on the bottom. We've already said the slugs were actually produced in 1851 and 52, but pretty much the same here. This one does not have any lettering within the banner. It says 000 thousandths, which this one does not have any gold. So yeah, that's probably why. And it says $50, which is the later variety of slug, because remember 50D0C was the original. But this is a fantastic facsimile slug on the obverse, and even the reverse has that watch case reverse is what I like to call it, because they called it engine turning when they first came out with it. But really, a lot of the reverse of the watch casings, the backside, had this kind of design back at that time. So very beautiful. It's not exactly the same, but that was the whole point of using that in the beginning, that type of design. But very beautiful reverse that conjures up that engine turning / watch case reverse. So this one here is copper. So it's one of 79 that were minted. Dan also minted 44 silver, which I'd love to get, or the brass. I'd love to get one of these in the future. That's only 39. So these are locked up in somebody's collection, in folks' collection, and you gotta wait. He also produced bimetallic, like a gold and silver bimetallic versions that had lower mintages. So this one here, I was really happy to get into my collection, especially coming on the heels of me losing that lot auction at Holabird auctions recently, and then this one came up right after, which really blew me away. So happy to get this one. Been looking for it for a while. And again, it comes in the Annex MS69 red, signed in Sharpie on the obverse by Jeff Shevlin, who's sort of the organizer of the so-called Dollar Fellowship, and on the reverse by Daniel Carr. So very nice to have. Let's move on to a few other slug facsimiles that I've managed to get recently. This one here, I got from Jeff Shevlin. I bought this one from Jeff Shevlin. This is made. This was made in the 1940s and 1950s. It has a Jankowski catalog number of 845, J845, which means this could be. I could send this to NGC to have them slab it, but my level of collecting is such that I'm just self-slabbing these, which is what you see here. These were sold and distributed by Earl Parker, who was a San Francisco shop owner, collector. And this was the type 2, the second type. It's 40 millimeters, gilt brass. It has a coin flip, as you can see here. A coin flip with 50 stamped in the reverse. It has that engine turning / watch case reverse, and it says 50 on the bottom, not $50, but that's facsimile. It doesn't have that extra imitation of etc. Wording on the perimeter, and has 880 thousandths. All right, San Francisco, California, instead of United States of America. So this one here is the Parker facsimile, slug facsimile, the second type, 40 millimeters, gilt brass, and I'm happy to have purchased this one from Jeff Shevlin. Next one is another Parker slug facsimile. This one here I got in a Holabird lot. So this one I purchased at Holabird auctions recently, and got a good deal on it actually at that point in time, which is one of the reasons I regret losing that other lot because of the phone call. Anyway, this is type 3. It's a little bit smaller. It's 38. The other one was 40. This is also gilt brass. These are supposed to have a metal flip, but mine has a coin flip, which is a little bit odd. But nevertheless, you can see San Francisco, California, 880,000. Same thing, 50 on the bottom, and the same sort of design on the reverse. This one here is a Jankowski 964G. It was made in 1964. I don't know the maker, but it was made for the Montana Territorial Centennial. It says OHF on the banner instead of the fineness. I'm not exactly sure of what that means, what that stands for. And there is no lettering on the banner, 50 on the bottom, and it has sort of that imagery that's similar of the watch case design, but it also has Montana Territorial Centennial, 1864, 1964. This is gilt brass. It's 40 millimeters. I got this one at the Holabird Americana auction as well. Another Holabird Americana auction that I got. This is Jankowski 976, made in 1976 by U.S. Gold Corp. Now, I think, I'm not 100% certain, I didn't go that deep in my research. I think they made a gold version of this. But this one here is no gold content, counterstamped. It on the obverse, official bicentennial gold proof or gold piece commemorative. All right, so it still has that slug facsimile. I think that's just 50 grains, if I remember right, 50 grains, 18K, 18 carats. So I think the die was used in striking some gold pieces, but this one here is brass and counterstamped with the no gold content. On the reverse, it has Old San Francisco Mint and an inscription um, um, that you can read yourself. So, um, another nice piece to add. I had not seen this one before, but glad that it came up in the auction. I was able to pick it up at a good price. This one here, we're getting out of the slug facsimiles and into some other octagons. And these are numismatic society medals. This one here is one that I got at the Holabird auction. Um, it says 60th anniversary, 1915 to 1975. So this was made in 1975. I'm not sure who made this one. It has a Palace of Fine Arts depicted on the obverse, and on the reverse is the original official seal of the Pacific Coast Numismatic Society from 1915. So that's the seal that has sort of a mining scene with the sun in the back. This one here is a bronze. And the story behind this is that they originally minted 500 of these, but they only distributed 300. The other 200 were used for the 65th anniversary. So they used the others for the 65th anniversary and restruck them. But only 300 of these were let out into the wild, basically. So that's nice because it pairs up nicely with this one that I just got from a Dan Carr collector. Just got it. And this is the 100th anniversary. So the 2015 medal from Dan Carr, Moonlight Mint. So I'm really happy to have that come full circle and have the 60th anniversary and the 100th anniversary. This one has the owl on the obverse, which is sort of imagery from the Panama Pacific Exposition in San Francisco. All right. And it has little dolphins here. This one's 41 millimeters. This one's brass and has a mintage of only 69. Only 69. It has on the reverse, again, that 1915 original official seal of the Pacific Coast Numismatic Society. And actually a really nice depiction of the mining scene from that seal. So really nice one. Only 69 of these, so I'm happy to get this one into my collection. I didn't think I'd ever get that one. It also pairs up with this one, and I've already shown this one time before, but I'm putting it here for completeness sake. I got this one at a Holabird Americana auction, but an older auction. And this one here is from the 1000th meeting. This is made by Medallic Art Company, Mako, which is somewhere on here. It may be the edge that it has Mako on it. And again, it has that seal, the official seal, which is a really nice one. This one's copper and only 200 minted. So really nice trio of Pacific Coast Numismatic Society medals. Which leads me to the next Numismatic Society, which is this one here. I got this one in the more recent Holabird Americana auction. And this one's only 33 millimeters. It's bronze. And it has this, it's a Colorado and Wyoming Numismatic Association from 1952. Now, I don't know if this specific medal was minted in 1952, but that's when this was incorporated. this particular association. Um, and I don't know who made this. It's Uniface, but this imagery here is a Pikes Peak mining scene. Dan Carr uses a similar imagery on his Lesher Octagons, at least one of his Lesher Octagons. He's used it a few times, this imagery of the Pikes Peak mining scene. So it sort of ties together my collection in that regard. They have this piece and also the Dan Carr pieces with that same imagery. Now we're going into a few more octagons that are not the Numismatic Society, but I got this one at the recent Holabird Americana auction, and it's a beautiful piece that is copper, 40 millimeters. It's made by the Nevada City Mint in the 1980s, and it has a Jankowski's MC7 catalog number. And it has the Mariposa Courthouse on the obverse, and it says Historic Courthouse here, and it has that watch case design on the reverse, which is beautiful. This is one that I picked up recently, which ties in with the next one, which is the older Holabird Americana auction lot that I won, that had this piece in it, I self-slab. This one here is the Mariposa Courthouse Centennial, 1854 to 1954. This was made in 1954. And also on the reverse is the Mariposa Gazette Centennial as well, the newspaper from 1854 to 1954. So obverse, reverse, it's a centennial. So remember what I said, centennials and expositions and things like that, they are picked up in the Hibbler Kappen book. And so this has an HK catalog number, HK704. This is 41 millimeters, gilt bronze. And because it's 41 millimeters is why it looks sort of funky in this case. It's the obverse is really nice. It shows up, but I can't press it in deep enough. So it looks like a circular metal here, but it's the octagon. So there you have it. Those are some of the new acquisitions. Man, I'm happy to have those in my collection. And like I said, octagons. Boy, I went down that hole, and it's a fun area of collecting, particularly these so-called slugs from the original slug or ingot from the U.S. Assay Office in 1851, 1852. So thank you for watching. We'll remind you to buy stuff you like, but be smart about what you buy. We'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.